Hello everybody, my name is Piero and I play percussion in Verdant Vibes. Welcome to our winter warm-up performance. Tonight we'll be presenting recordings of 3 solo pieces for you. Chuck Furlong will be playing the world premiere of Michele Abondano's solo bass clarinet piece titled "And It Comes Like a Piece of Light Through the Dust." That will be followed by Zan Berry performing the cello solo "INBHIR Many Waters" by Inti figgis-vizueta. And ending with Emmy performing Anuj Bhutani's piece "To the Lighthouse" for solo violin and electronics. Each piece will be preceded by a short conversation with the composers. Please feel free to leave a comment in the chat at Facebook or YouTube, and if possible, donate to Verdant Vibes at the link below. We're so glad you're here and we hope you enjoy the show.
What brought about you creating this beautiful work for bass clarinet?
Thank you. This is part of my current research on timbre. I have been studying the multidimensionality of timbre as from a creative perspective, but also trying to understand the relation or the correlations between the words that we use to describe timbre and how the visual and tactile experiences are influence that experience of trying to talk about a timbral experience and the correlations with the acoustic conditions of timbre. So I have been working on the 3 semantic dimensions that have been proposed from the psychoacoustic field, and this piece is on luminance. So I started to work on the perception of light in timbre. So this piece is a kind of exploration of the volatile and flickering, unstable experience of light. So I tried to approach a kind of measurement that I did for my compositional approach. Like I tried to structure the piece according to different levels of amount and intensity of light. So the point is that looking for the clarity or the clearness, I go through many phases until the total distortion. So the exploration of the piece is trying to recognize in the techniques, different kind of techniques, different levels in the experience of light. So that's.
How did you start that research? It's so unique and new to me, and I'm sure a lot of the folks who will be listening to this. Like, what was your very beginnings in thinking about how you can translate qualities of light into sound?
Well, I think that this is part of my research because, as I said, I am working on 3 dimensions. So it is luminance, mass, and texture. So I started with luminance, but I have been interested in timbre for years. Even before this PhD, I did my master's studies in Mexico, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, focused on timbre. But in that moment, I was exploring the relationship between sound and movement. So it was more an experimental approach, the creation with the experience, with collaborative work with dance. So the body of the dancer was the main source of the sound. So from that time, I started to feel attracted to the idea of timbre as a process of interaction that we perceived in a multidimensional and dynamic experience. So that approach to timbre as something that is not fixed, but a process of transformation was like the first step for me to to try to understand many other things in timbre. So this approach to the semantic dimensions has led me to deal with things like light, the physicality or the materiality in terms of mass. I try to understand the physical resistance of the bodies, and then in texture, the interaction of those, more from the tactile experience. But also I think that something really interesting in this approach is that all the multidimensionality is also a correlation, because the experience of luminance is also an experience of texture, and the experience of texture is also an experience of mass. So I have been creating different layers and kind of my own perspectives on timbre for the development of my composition approach. So it is also a creative perspective, but it is based on things that could be taken from other fields of knowledge, like the psychoacoustic.
the inspiration for it is just this old Irish, old Gaelic word named called INBHIR, which is like it's like a confluence of waters, or like where rivers meet, or like, you know, all these like there's a lot of words to describe how bodies of water work in in the old language. And so yeah, I was happy to kind of take that and then use that as a way to kind of connect kind of more open sections with really kind of fast moving things.
We've been fortunate enough to, and blessed really, to play some of your work. And you focus on language in an interesting way, even just in looking at how this piece is put together. It's built off of a Gaelic word. In your descriptions for the player, you have a lot of, even kind of for music people, old-timey use of Italian phrases for how to perform something. And then also use very contemporary kind of cross-cultural or culturally borrowing terms like riffing on this. I'm curious on, and then of course that's not even touching the notation of how you translate the music. How do all these languages how do you wrangle them all to create a guide for your performer to realize what you want them to?
You know, I think I really appreciate the fact that there is kind of an ongoing relationship between y'all and my work that that actually like opens up the space for that question, because there is I mean, there's a lot that kind of goes into picking each of those things, like from the vibe that, you know, I've had a lot of kind of heavy exploration of elements of like aleatoricism and indeterminacy, using that with like things like cyclic forms, nonlinear things, not meshed up things. And so I think with a lot of that engagement and work has been kind of also an acknowledgement and a kind of like need to reckon with some of these old terms and some of like the insinuations of these old terms, because they kind of hold their own kind of like coding and language for how someone might approach something. So like, you know, referring to a specific technique in Italian or something, you know, kind of gives it the sense that maybe it should be approached from that perspective, right? From seeing that in all the other places that thing might appear in history. And I think that that's where like language comes in for me, because I'm really interested in kind of lineage and stuff like that. I mean, you know, I think you're also probably picking up that there's like a level of maybe critical engagement, I guess maybe is like a nice way to say that, with tradition, where like, you know, this piece is taking, you know, elements from some of the Bach cello suites, elements of, you know, the kind of like repetitious patterns within, you know, like with change within them, with just a couple voices moving, like manipulating all of those things, you know, and like ascending by scale, you know, with a adjacent string drone. Like those are all things that like really are kind of reminiscent of some of that music. And so I think, you know, combining that language is in a way kind of being like this, you know, I feel like there has to be a recognition that when we bring that language into a musical space, we're also invoking elements of like what that history is. And so I think I try and just like, I don't know, like dance around that a little bit.
So, To the Lighthouse is the title is actually comes from the Virginia Woolf novel of the same name. So I just read it. Let's see, I wrote this piece last fall, so fall 2019, and I'd read the novel To the Lighthouse over the summer, and it was the second Virginia Woolf novel that I read after Mrs. Dalloway, because I was really getting into this sort of like stream of consciousness, style of literary presentation. Not much happens. I mean, there's not really much plot. There's not a lot of sort of event-driven narrative. It's very, the lion's share of any of her books is just the internal dialogue of characters. Sometimes 200 pages might just be 24 hours, in the life of one person's mind. And so, it's the Lighthouse is this, it doesn't quite follow that structure, but it sort of jumps between sort of three different points in time at this one location. So it doesn't even necessarily follow a character as much as it follows a place. And so it deals a lot with this sort of like the human experience of time and loss and, nostalgia, and sort of like how do we sort of, reckon with these things just as people. Really kind of what I was thinking about, not in any sort of direct like programmatic sense of like, oh, this is when this thing happens in the book and this is how I'm gonna like have these sections that correspond to anything, but just sort of more generally like this idea that every experience you have is sort of shaped by everything that's happened to you already. Every sort of interpretation you make about the world is depends just on every experience you've had up until this point, and this sort of constant dialogue with the past and sort of who you are. And it was my first piece with electronics, actually, which has opened a whole new world for me. I mean, that was a piece that I wrote and I thought, wow, I will never be able to like turn back from this. I mean, I could tell that, oh, there's something here, for me. And just the possibilities that really opened up with, as you'll hear in the piece, there's a lot of just sort of ghostly versions of what the instrumental part presents that, again, create that sort of dialogue that I think Wolf is frequently dealing with in her work.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our winter warmer. Leave any questions or comments in the chat, and don't forget to donate to Verdant Vibes using the link below. So our next online concert will be January 23rd, and it includes 3 unique collaborative pieces by Marcel Zayas, Iman Habibi, and Sally Duke that we will perform in real time. We're so glad you could join us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great and safe holiday season. Bye.